Hey everybody, welcome back to the LuckyDog podcast. This is your host, Elias Roush. Today we are discussing Possessor, the 2020 British-Canadian science fiction psychological horror film written and directed by Brandon Cronenberg, the son of the notorious David Cronenberg, the guy that's known for always having the crazy body horror type transformations and stuff like that. So this is his son who's creating this movie, Possessor. So don't know too much about Possessor besides hearing that it was extremely violent. It's suspenseful. It's everything you would expect the spawn of David Cronenberg would have. But I kind of think that this is a lot more psychological in a way that I wasn't exactly expecting. I am not a David Cronenberg aficionado, so I don't know too much of his filmography outside of The Fly, and so I do know that he's very much focused on like body transformations and stuff like that, really practical effects, that type of thing. And so I would expect that his son is somewhat in the same vein. I got to say, really, really surprised by the film Possessor. I have to say that it made my top 10 of 2020. I don't remember exactly where it made it, but it made top 10. And it was one of the last movies I watched of 2020. It just blew me out of the water. I honestly wasn't exactly sure how to describe this movie, except for saying that it was probably one of the more films that felt like it was an experience. It's one of the films I wish I would have been able to see in theaters and just been blown away from, just like not having any idea about what this was about or what it was going to be about. And so I don't remember exactly what I said it was a combination of, but most of the time I do describe Christopher Nolan's films as experiences, and I gotta say, I think that this is nothing short of an experience of a movie. I mean, you're in just another world is what it feels like, and then the sound elements that go along with it. I listen to it with headphones on, and really just I was gonna say it revolves around you, but it absorbs you into the movie. And so, with saying that, most of the positive things I'd have to say about it, almost everything good about it. Sorry, there's many aspects of this movie. The majority of it, I'd say, is good. When it gets a little bit difficult is when it kind of gets into the little bit of the torture pornish a little bit. You know, they kind of revel in the violence a little bit extra in a way that I'd necessarily, if I was directing the movie, I would not have done. But other than that, besides it being, darker in theme and in tone, it is a very interesting movie and in the way that it's presented, and could definitely use a little bit lighter of a touch when it comes down to how dark it is. I think that you just have to be ready for that type of movie when you're going in. It's extremely violent, dark, bleak, an experience, suspense, all of those. When it says it's a psychological horror film, it's very much in the psychological. And it's very visually interesting, to say the least. I mean, the visual aspects of this movie are extremely dynamic. I tried to find the cinematography. Okay, so music by Jim Williams. Not terribly familiar with this guy. He has television credits and stuff like that. Looks like from British television. And Kareem Hussan, another Canadian filmmaker, is the cinematographer of this. I have not seen any of the films that they have worked on, but I was very impressed with what they had under their belt. I don't see anything that is probably anybody would know off the top of their head. He's worked with Cronenberg before, it appears, on Antiviral, which was, I believe, was Cronenberg's first film, but I'm not 100% sure. Let me see. Filmography. Antiviral was his first feature, yeah. And so this is his second feature past that, and it's very impressive. Yeah, so let me see what else we have. Okay, Jim. Okay, so starring Andrea Riseborough. She is very much, I don't want to say she's an up and coming, because I think she's been in a lot of things. It's just she hasn't always been one of those actresses that everyone knows off the top of their head. But whenever they see her, they're always like, "Oh yeah, I do remember her. She was in that one movie." And so she's become way more relevant within more movies, bigger feature films. She was in kind of the indie darling that a lot of people liked with Nicolas Cage, Mandy, 2018. That was one of my favorite movies that year. She was in The Death of Stalin, Battle of the Sexes, Nocturnal Animals, Birdman, Oblivion, Welcome to the Punch, Disconnect, She had her Dancer, and many other different pieces of media. Portrayal. She had a BAFTA nomination for her portrayal of Margaret Thatcher. Let me see what else she has. She has stage credits as well, so she's theatrically and I guess trained in theater as well. I really enjoy Andrea Riseborough as an actress because she brings this really 39. Wow. She brings this really interesting layer of mystique in a way. I wouldn't picture her of being 39. I don't think I've pictured her of being like an older individual. But I do picture her having that the wisdom that comes along with having seen a lot of things. I just feel like that's the kind of character that she plays, as someone that's been around the block. And let me see what else we have. She was only half of the cast that I was very impressed by in Possessor. Christopher Abbott. He was an actor I had found in, what was it? What was he? He was in an HBO. Oh, he was in Girls. He was in The Sinner. Okay, as Mason Tenetti. He kind of had a more low key, less strenuous, much less strenuous role in The Sinner, from what I can remember. I think it was season 2. But don't take my word for it. I think it was season 2. Was it season 2? I can't remember. Anyways, Christopher Abbott was in maybe season 1. Anyways, Christopher Abbott was able to show some range while he was in The Sinner. But once I saw him in this, I was sold. I was absolutely sold on this actor, and his ability to kind of transfer the story of Andrea Riseborough, without going into too much spoilers, them combining together to be kind of this force in this movie is just amazing. And so let me see if I can give this a synopsis for this without going into too many spoilers. Let me see. I'm trying to give a kind of beat around the bush about what exactly this movie's about, because it's if you're already sold on having Cronenberg behind the camera, you have Riseborough and Abbott in front of the camera. And they're bringing their A game in this just really intense psychological kind of sci-fi horror film. I would definitely check it out for that reason if you're just even remotely interested in that. Given it is violent, it is dark, just know that going in. Don't go in this coming in thinking you're going to have tons of laughs and it's a big old happy. But let me see. Okay, so I'm going to give the synopsis of this away plot. Okay, coming up. Okay, so here's the plot coming up because I wish I did not know this going into it, but even describing it is just a lot of fun discovering how this movie works. And so here's the plot for Possessor. This is not the spoiler section. Once we're at the spoiler section, I'll let everyone know because generally we're going to start pushing the Patreon as the only section that is going to get this this part of the review after the spoiler-free section. And so here we go with the plot. Plot for Possessor. Possessor follows an agent who works as a secretive organization that uses brain implant technology to inhabit other people's bodies, ultimately driving them to commit assassinations for high-paying clients. This was a movie that came to mind almost immediately. Now, I don't think that saying the plot of another movie really is spoiling it, so I'm going to go ahead and give you 15 seconds to skip ahead if you don't want to know what the plot of Inception is. But the plot of Inception, real quickly, essentially, you jump into someone else's brain you jump into someone else's mind and influence their decisions through their dreams, aka Inception. So this is kind of in the same realm. Possessor is physically taking over someone's body and in choosing what their actions and emotions are. Now, that's all good and dandy, but what happens if you start to lose control in someone else's body, or if that person's body is starting to come back awake? Like, there's a lot of questions that go into the logistics of quote unquote using a brain and implant technology to inhabit someone else's body. Like, I think it's considered a low concept, but it's pretty intense to think about. It's like if someone could take over your body and do whatever they wanted to do with it, that's one of the scariest things you could think of. But what are the possibilities when it comes down to a movie? And so what would naturally come about when this is happening? So here are the notes I have for Possessor. Possessor. It feels like an experience right off the bat. The cinematography is amazing. The colors, the close-up shots, the violence feels very visceral. I don't know if that's necessarily a pro, but it's just something that you notice. The sounds and the way that it puts you into the emotions and the way that it puts you into the scene is you can feel what is happening as it's happening. The editing is very slick in a way that it feels like this is a conventional film in some parts, but then it kind of goes into this weary kind of indie territory where the camera shots are a little bit extra lingery than usual, but in a way that I like, though. The acting in it is phenomenal. Between Abbott and Riseborough, it's even said on Wikipedia that they were praised for their performances. They absolutely need to be praised for their performances, considering how intense of performances they have to give on such like a whim in a way. So I was just very impressed by that. Jennifer Jason Leigh, she is cold-hearted. I'll tell you that, and not like as a person, but the character she's always playing, even as far back a couple years back, what was it, The Hateful Eight or something like that. That's kind of her forte. She's almost like a character actress that is always playing like the same individual, just like this hard ass lady, and she plays no different here. And so what I really like about this movie is that in a way that it kind of can be compared to Inception in a way similarly, is that it has like these rules that come out and really are solidified in a way that are showing you how the world works. And I always enjoy that in movies. showing the technical aspects about it. Okay, we can do this for this long. How does it make us do this? Oh, we have this machine that makes us do this. Those are the kind of movies I like doing that. And then normally, once they establish that this can happen, something crazy can happen in the world. What happens if we turn that over on its head? Or you don't cross the streams. Okay, well, what happens if we cross the streams? It's that kind of thing. So I enjoyed the experience of watching Possessor. I got to say, it's one of the most intense things I've seen. Cons, it's brutal as hell. Like I said, the violence feels extremely visceral and real in a way that almost feels like they take it, they revel in it in a way. I would say this movie could use some levity in some parts. The levity that could definitely be applied to this movie seems like it could really just it could help people feel a little bit better with these characters that we're watching. I know not every movie is supposed to say, hey, this is a good guy, this is a bad guy, because things can be very black and white in some movies, and then some can have many shades of gray. And so I will say by the end of this, you might have some mixed feelings on who exactly is the good and who's the bad. Bloody as hell. Very easy to understand so far. Okay, so this was the comparison. I said that this is like the movie when they're like, "Get out of my head." They always taking over everybody's bodies. But there was another movie that I was thinking about when I was thinking about writing the notes for this podcast. This is like Avatar, not The Last Airbender, Avatar, the 2009 David, was it Cameron Avatar movie, whatever the hell. What was James Cameron? James Cameron, I think I said David Cameron. James Cameron Avatar meets Christopher Nolan's Inception, and added big dash of horror, psychological horror into it, and that's what this movie kind of feels like. It's like taking over the body of another being, kind of thing. Okay, so yeah, that kind of takes me into the spoiler section, and from here, just wanted to let everyone know, not all podcasts are recorded live, but we have many podcasts that are recorded live on Twitch. And so if you are listening on Twitch, you're going to get the spoiler section alongside the individuals that are in the Patreon section. We'll leave this up only for the people that are subscribing to the Lucky Dog podcast on Twitch for 1 or 2 days, and then they'll be released on Patreon. Like I said, this does not happen with all of the podcasts. I'm just trying to have a nice fluctuation of individuals starting to go to the Twitch platform. Also, check out the YouTube, check out the SoundCloud if you want the podcasts early. Like I said, all of these podcasts will be produced early and released early on the Patreon feed as well. So always check that out in the show notes for any additional Lucky Dog podcast goodness you can find. If you want to support the podcast and you can't throw a buck or two, don't worry about it. You can still go on iTunes. You can still go on YouTube. You can still go on Twitch. Rate, share, subscribe, follow, double thumbs up, do whatever you can to help support the podcast. All of that really helps grow the podcast and show the support. It also makes me feel good too. It makes me know that we are providing a decent service, that you like the reviews. don't want to just talk to the void, talk to nobody. So I generally get pretty good reviews on the people that like listening to the longer podcast, and just let me know how I can improve as well. So it's not always just about saying, yeah, I love it, but how can we get a little bit better? So cultivating the community, we'll try to continue in that direction. So for everyone else, if you are watching on YouTube or listening on another platform, be sure to check out at Lucky Dog Podcast. That's one word, Lucky Dog Podcast, and you'll be able to find all of the Lucky Dog goodness, and you'll be able to join us in the spoiler section there. All right, so for everyone else, we are jumping into the spoiler section, and yeah, so spoiler section for Possessor starting right now. Okay, so in alternate 2008, Tasia Voss, an assassin who takes control of others' bodies to carry out her hits, through an implant installed in her unwitting host's brain, Voss can use a special machine to insert a consciousness into their minds. She returns to her body by forcing the host to commit suicide at the end of each job, which is very intense, but also very much in the same realm of what we had talked about in the other movies earlier. When this is just thrown in the beginning, almost in a similar fashion, how we're thrown into the job. We're thrown into the job in Inception at the beginning of that movie. We're thrown into the job of this assassin at the beginning of this movie. Due to the amount of time she spends intimidating other people, Voss, with increasing detachment from her own identity and cannot fully separate her work from her interactions with her husband, Michael, and son, Ira. When they're inserting these things and into like the body of the head or to the cranium or whatever the hell it is, kind of trying to like enter into the matrix, into the other person's brain and stuff like that. It's intense when they're showing the different levels of emotion they're going to have to carry out as this individual, like just testing. That's fucking intense. I'll be honest. And Chris Abbott and I think Riseborough and anybody that is being taken over mentally has to have a lot of like pent up emotion built a little bit. Excuse me, let me get a little bit of water. So what do we have? She practices assuming her normal persona the same way she practices impersonating her hosts. Thoughts of violence haunt her ordinary domestic life, such as when putting Ira to bed and having sex with Michael. There was a lot of interesting editing that was happening with this particular individual. You know, Riseborough having to. It's almost like a PTSD from living this life as an assassin, which is very interesting, which we don't get to see portrayed very often. We mostly see the badassness of this type of behavior. The 007s generally aren't being haunted by the people that he's killing. But this isn't exactly 007. It's not. It does make the kills look very visceral, is the word that keeps coming back to me. Voss's handler, retired assassin Gritter, Girder? Is that how you say that? I don't even know what the hell. I'm going to speak it. Girder. Okay, so Voss's handler, retired assassin Girder, is critical of her desire to remain connected to her family and expresses the belief that Voss would be a better killer without personal attachments. In a debriefing session meant to reconnect her with her real identity, Voss sorts through a series of objects associated with personal memories and pauses on a butterfly that she penned and framed as a child. She tells Girder she feels guilty for killing it. And so this is going to be kind of the navigation of how Riseborough is dealing with loss as in her humanity. It's like the butterfly almost is the humanity she still has. So despite her fragile mental state and fatigue with her work, Voss agrees to perform a major hit on wealthy CEO John Parse and his daughter Ava. So John Parse is played by Sean Bean, and if anybody knows who the hell Sean Bean is, Ned Stark maybe, but also if you've ever seen Sean Bean in almost any other movie, I think Sean Bean is up there with one of the top actors that is most likely to die in a movie. So when you see Sean Bean, usually there's you know what is the guillotine is hanging over his head. It's like it's all in good time that this guy is probably going to die. And so by possessing Ava's fiance Colin Tate, Angela Riseborough needs to take on this mission to kill John and his daughter. And so I was like, this is intense. So she has to go really fucking far into this assassination situation. It's not always as easy as just taking over somebody's body and making it hit. Sometimes they have to make it look like it's in public, and so that many of the times that it might look like it's without question who did it. And so the hit is only a partial success. This is taking kind of a big leap in what happens in the plot. I mean, she really has to go undercover to be in Colin's body and have the trust of all these people. And she also has this she can hear what Jennifer Jason Leigh's character is saying in her head as well. And so the hit is only a partial success. Ava dies, but Parse survives. So this whole little part, I mean, there's probably 20 minutes of the movie at least that she has to go in and infiltrate and get the trust of all, these individuals, go to a party, make it look like this is some craziness happening, ruckus in the family. And then at the very end, it is just this scene where it feels like the camera is just sitting there for a second watching this terrible murder happen. And it's hard to watch Ava. Well, first, before Ava, it's hard to watch John Parse and Chris Abbott have this really intense conversation. You know what actually reminded me of? Chris Abbott looks like a knockoff Jon Snow. And so it looked like Jon Snow was like killing Sean Bean, or it kind of looked like Jon Snow was like killing Ned Stark. I was just like, oh my God. And we have this extremely violent scene where Chris Abbott is like poking his fucking eye. I was like, ah! I was just like not ready for that type of torture porn in a way. I was just like, this is not what I signed up for. And this was the scene, I think, that it was showing that the character and the camera are kind of lingering in what's getting in the, it's the festering wound. It's the thing in the eye. It's like, I can't deal with things like I don't, someone getting stabbed, someone getting, a needle, someone getting a sword, someone getting shot. Most of those ways of penetration in the skin don't normally make me fester, just kind of like like move around in my seat, kind of like wiggle. But seeing him like poke Sean Bean's face with a fucking fire poker, it just like had me like, is just like, make it stop. And so that's what was really nasty. On top of then right after he does that, he slowly is following like Ava into the kitchen, where she is just crawling to get away from Chris Abbott's character. It's Angela Riseborough's character in Chris Abbott's body, and it's a very difficult scene to watch. It just feels almost too visceral in a way. It's so weird how we can watch just what feels like endless amounts of murder in different areas, but when it comes to like a residential time or a residential place, and there's just this like very disheartening kind of human behavior, it's hard to watch. And so this was one of those scenes that was just very difficult to watch for me. But yeah, so anyways, we find out that Ava dies, but Parse later we find out survives, which is very intense, which means Chris Abbott's character is now on the run from John Parse, because John Parse can now identify who's done this. Voss attempts to flee the scene by forcing Tate to shoot himself, but she discovers she cannot make him pull the trigger. So we find out that Riseborough, she's been having these like off sessions, like, thinking that she's been losing control in the bodies that she's taking care of, or that she's in the bodies that she's inhabiting. And Chris Abbott is kind of coming back from whatever state he is, and so it's Chris Abbott is having to play this character with both Riseborough taking over his body and himself taking back over his own body, and it is just very intense. And so let me see. So Voss attempts to flee the scene by forcing Tate to shoot himself, but discovers she cannot make him pull the trigger. And so, okay, so Tate instead stabs himself in the skull in an act of a rebellion. I don't remember exactly where he stabbed himself in the skull. Let me see. Yeah, I don't remember exactly. I don't remember. I guess wasn't that big of a deal, to be honest. This damages the implant, and Voss discovers she cannot leave Tate's body or overpower his will. So this was kind of the folding in of, the terrible things that could probably happen in this movie. And thinking about taking over somebody's body is scary, but thinking about being stuck in someone else's body is just like a completely another story. It's just like, oh my goodness, cannot deal. It's just like, So, so Tate regaining control. This is Chris Abbott. Him and his character in his body does not know why he killed his girlfriend, or why he has begun to experience false fragmented memories of another person, Voss's life. So he's starting to lose his fucking mind. It would be just horrifying finding out that you killed someone you love and you had no idea you did it. I couldn't even imagine. Fathoming that is just ridiculous to think about. But then thinking about someone taking over your body just feels like intrusive in so many ways. Among, obviously killing. That's just ridiculous. Tate instead stabs himself in the skull. Oh, I already said that. Fragmented memories of Voss's life. So Chris Abbott is remembering Voss's life and kind of giving us a little bit of backstory about who she was. The traumatized and disoriented Tate flees from the crime scene to his friend Rita's apartment. He kills Rita while struggling with disassociated memories of the hit on Parse and Ava. There's this whole scene where we're like, all right, so he's finally got a friend. He's finally got someone that can help him. And I should have known, based off of how much she was helping him, that she was going to die. And based off of how dark the movie is, there's no letting up. Anybody that these people came in contact with, absolutely relentless, absolutely dark. And so I thought Rita was going to be the help, but ends up she's dead as well. He kills Rita while struggling with disassociated memories on the hit on Parse and Ava. Eddie, another employee from Voss's company, arrives at the apartment to help her regain control and complete Tate's suicide. So you know what I actually did notice that they completely leave out is the fact that there's a big paragraph right here where Riseborough takes over Chris Abbott's body for what I think is probably a day or two before Chris Abbott actually kills or attempts to kill John Parson, his daughter. And during that time, she is in Chris Abbott's body at his job. And this is where we actually find the other person that bumps into him, Eddie. Eddie is actually an undercover agent, secret agent that works at Chris Abbott's company for a little bit. And we don't know that at the time we first meet Eddie, but then Eddie comes back later. And so I do got to say, this extremely extremely. I mean, the movie is intrusive. The movie should have been called Intrusive, Intrusified or something like that. 2020. I don't know, but Chris Abbott's job. What the fuck is Chris Abbott's job? He's got like these VR glasses on, and he's looking in on people's like webcams and shit like that, and identifying the things in the room, and I guess just kind of setting up some sort of profile for them, which would be absolutely horrifying to even think about. He's just like, okay, they have a Sony webcam, check. Okay, he has a coffee maker on the side, check. He has PV speakers, check. And he's like, just building these people's lives and I guess portfolios based off of just looking in their room, which I don't even know. It's literally the epitome of being spied on that people are horrified about. This is the job, and so. So going back to when Eddie, okay, so Eddie from another employee from Voss's company arrives at the apartment to help Angela Riseborough regain control of Tate and complete Tate's suicide. And given with the editing of what's going on, we're not too lost. I feel like the whole time I knew what was relatively going on with how confusing the movie could have been for only an hour and 4 minutes. It's not even. It's like an hour and 40 minutes, something like that. I don't know. It's reasonably length. I don't know. It's a reasonable length. So So yeah, let me see what's here. Okay, so the attempt fails to try to kill Chris Abbott's character again, as in a suicide. Voss is still unable to make Tate kill himself. Instead, Tate becomes aware of the presence inside his body, of her presence inside his body. His consciousness overpowers her in a psychiatric confrontation, giving him access to memories of her husband, child, and home. He kills Eddie during the internal battle, and I think he just like wakes up, and all of a sudden, this is what happens. Now, I believe what I'm describing in this little Tate versus Abbott Chris Abbott and Riseborough kind of struggling together is when the face mask, I think, goes on, and kind of like what's behind me, you can see it on the poster, and she's like becoming Chris Abbott's character, and they're kind of merging as one. And so this is where the psychological horror is, just meeting everything, and it's just like really fucking insane from a visual standpoint. This is where I think I realized I really liked the movie, just based off of the internal struggle of these characters and kind of understanding who they were. I felt like really meets their match here. Now, I can't say that we know too much about these characters before all of this is happening, with the exception of the flashbacks that we get of Riseborough. So Chris Abbott's character, we barely know who he is before, but we don't ever think that he was a terrible guy or that he would ever do this. So he's kind of the protagonist, to be honest, in this movie. So, Abbott kills Eddie during their internal battle once he wakes up from this crazy mishmash of like colors and psychological, emotional trauma happening. I don't know exactly how to describe it. It's crazy. So Tate goes to Voss's home and holds her husband at gunpoint, demanding to know what she did to him. Which, this is the part where I'm like, all right, so this is more collateral damage to the movie, which I feel like lends to it being slightly darker and a little bit unnecessary at that point. Tate goes to Voss's home and holds her husband at gunpoint, demanding to know what she did to him. Voss appears and goads Colin into killing Michael so that she can be freed from her personal attachments. So when Michael knocks the gun from... Hold on, Colin. So it's like Riseborough is almost is saying that she wants to be rid of her personal attachments, apparently. and to kill Michael, which is her husband. When Michael knocks the gun from Tate's hand, Chris Abbott, Tate kills him with a meat cleaver. Oh yeah, this was very brutal. This was when Chris Abbott just kind of like spazzes. He's just like, all right, this is where he kind of doesn't become the protagonist we really want him to be. He just breaks down emotionally, mentally, all the way. When Michael knocks the gun from the hand, kills him with a meat cleaver, and it's just like repeatedly just deesh, get a deesh, get a deesh. And I was thinking about it. I was like, oh my gosh, the kid. Oh my gosh, the kid. And so moments later, Ira stabs Tate in the throat, finally killing him. So, finally killing him. It's like, this motherfucker won't die. Tate uses his last moments to fatally shoot Ira. Though the murder is portrayed as Voss shooting Ira. Voss herself shooting Ira. So Voss returns to her own body and discovers Gerder had taken control of Ira to end her struggle with Tate. With Ira and Michael both dead, she is now free of all human attachments, just like Gritter wanted. Ooh, I didn't know that Gritter wanted that. In another debriefing, Voss sorts through the same personal objects from the beginning of the film. She hands the butterfly again, but does not express... She handles the butterfly again, but does not express any guilt for killing it. So I'm assuming by the end of this movie, Angela Riseborough has lost all of her humanity. And I assume that's what the butterfly is a metaphor for. Thus, the end of Possessor 2020. Let me know what you thought about the review. Let me know what you thought about Possessor, the film. Let me know how we can improve on the review. Did you like the movie? Did you like the review? How can we improve? All the above. Be sure to check out patreon.com/LuckyDog Podcast for all of the stuff you need to know. You'll find it there, LuckyDog Podcast. You'll get the stuff early. You'll get it live on Twitch. You'll get it mastered on SoundCloud. You'll get it all the good stuff on YouTube as well. So be sure to check out all the fun social medias there. We have the links below. Thank you all, everyone in the Patreon that is supporting us as well. Be sure to 5 stars on iTunes if you have not already. That helps us rank up in the books and on the charts. So thank you for listening, watching LuckyDog Podcast. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we need to cover on this fine Saturday evening. I don't know. I got to check to make sure that this sound and everything is sounding all good. We are shooting in a brand new studio, so let me know how we can improve. By the way, I would have given this about an 8 out of 10. I got to say that it's pretty interesting that Possessor's only gotten 6.5 out of 10 on IMDb as an average, and it's 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't always check these because I don't always think that they're the most accurate, but I think that's kind of describes how it goes down. You can also watch it right now with a premium subscription on Hulu. So, now you know how to watch it. Now you know the review. Let me know how I can improve, and thank you for listening, watching LuckyDog Podcast. Take it easy.